Mr. Secretary, I think a good place to start is this. There was an Associated Press report earlier this month that indicated that the VA is now planning about 80,000 job cuts. Is that true?
Well, what we're looking at, Zach, and it's good to be with y'all today, and it's good to be here to set the record straight. President Trump was elected to make generational change in Washington, and that's what he set out to do. And one of those issues was decreasing the size and scope of our government. So there's been a discussion on a reduction in force across the government, not just at the VA. They set targets. I mean, if you don't have a target, then you're not going to ever get anything done. And one of the targets was about 15%. Now the goal, which would be about 70, 80,000, if you looked at it, which would be pre-COVID levels, is a goal. And we're going to look at it and see what we can get to, see what maybe makes it more efficient without ever compromising our patient safety and our patient health and also our disabilities benefits claims. One thing that's not a part of that is there's been no discussion at all and will not be of cutting healthcare benefits or disability benefits. Those are just not on the table. So look, we're looking at it from a different perspective than we have before. In the last 4 years, there was tens of billions of dollars added to the VA's budget and tens of thousands employees, but yet the metrics basically stayed the same or even went down, as in the case of backlogs. That backlog actually went up from under 60,000 to over 250,000. So there's a lot for us still to do here.
You mentioned some of the metrics. I know that the VA and VA hospitals and medical centers around the country have been on a journey themselves for the roughly last decade. I was looking at some data, internal VA data, and this is on your site. Veteran trust in the VA back in 2016 was at about 55%. At the end of last year, it had risen all the way to about 80%. That's a lot of progress over roughly 8 years. Do you worry that if these big cuts are implemented, that will undo some of that progress?
No, not really, because a lot of that increase came under Donald Trump's first administration as we were going forward and look for it. But look, 80% is great, but 80% is still 20% that we're not getting that trust and factor that we really want to see. So there's room for improvement. Look, we also have a GAO report out there that says we're still on the high risk list, and that's high risk susceptible to fraud, waste, and abuse in patient care. So, in the last 10 years, what we've looked at is once the people get into the system, we've had great employees who are helping them getting the health care that they need and making sure the services are provided. But the other situation is we still have areas in which we need to improve. And what we've seen in the last few years is just throwing sometimes money or people at that is not the best way to go about it. So look, scores and surveys are good, but I'm looking for a system that's actually putting the veteran first and making sure that the Affairs Department is actually focused on the veteran.
And I know putting veterans first, I've seen a lot of videos that you put out on Twitter. You've made that a real kind of center point of your leadership of the VA. I think some people who watch this interview might hear what you're saying. They might nod along and say, yeah, efficiency is good. We don't want fraud. We don't want abuse. But they might be looking for a little bit more clarity. When you're looking to make these potential cuts, how do you make that distinction? Who stays and who goes?
Well, it's really simple. What we're looking at is to make sure that no one is taking care of our veterans in our healthcare side and doing our disabilities claim are going to be touched. Those frontline workers are the people that are actually, doing the work that actually do the forward-facing, as we said, putting the veteran first. But that doesn't mean that I can't look at a management system in which we have layer upon layer of nurses and doctors and others who are never seeing a patient, who are simply moving paperwork around. Wouldn't it probably be better to put them back in the clinics and the hospitals so that we can decrease our patient load? We can actually increase efficiencies so that they get better health care? Or is it better to have a bloated bureaucracy that really has no purpose except to fund and to facilitate the VA itself, which is not the purpose here? So for me, it's pretty simple. We did away with our, we're looking at we changed our policy that, for transgender care, we're not doing gender story. We're not going to be looking to do sex change. And if you're already currently getting treatment in the VA, you'll continue to get it, but we're not doing it going forward. And most people believe that that's a common sense approach that VA shouldn't be a part of. And we're taking that money and we're putting it on to disabled veteran care and also prosthetics. Those are the kind of millions of dollars that are going to the front line. So when we look at the issues going forward, we're saying what is the most feasible and efficient approach, and actually doing more than just saying it. We're putting the dollars to make sure that happens.
And I want to move on to other topics. I hope you'll forgive one last question on this front because it's important. I know there are a lot of people with a lot of attention on this issue. If I'm hearing you right, is what you're saying right now that it is your promise that no VA employees who are involved in frontline, person-to-person patient care will have their jobs impacted?
Yeah, and look, this is the one thing, and I can't express over and over again. The very essence for the VA is to take care of veterans and to take care of them and their disability benefits. We're going to do everything we can to strengthen that while at the same time finding more and better uses, not only through our contract resources, but also through our employment issues. I mean, we have 470,000 employees, which, by the way, just a few weeks ago, I couldn't find in our HR system because we didn't have an HR system that actually worked that well. I don't think any business our size could do that. In fact, we're bigger than active duty Army. So we've got to get a control on what we've been given. Simply, and here's what's been the problem in Washington for so many years, is they want to complain about the VA. They want to talk about wait times or appointments and everything. And then their solution maybe will be to build a bigger bureaucracy. But when nothing changes, and then somebody like myself comes along and says, let's make some real change or have honest questions, they say, well, no, you can't do that. Well, you can't have it both ways. You can't say that the VA is on the GAO high risk list. You can't say that they're not protecting and not doing care, and then at the same time say, I don't want anything to happen. All you're saying there is you like the status quo. I'm not satisfied with the status quo, and most of our veterans aren't either.
Let's shift gears. I want to ask you about an Atlanta, Metro Atlanta specific issue. There was an Inspector General report that came out earlier this year that found that 2 years ago in 2023, the Atlanta VA Medical Center dropped or didn't answer tens of thousands of calls for help. Many more people who were calling into the Atlanta VA were left on hold for a long time. When you read that report, what was your reaction? Is that acceptable?
Well, it goes back to this whole interview. You know, again, we bring out things like that, which is not acceptable by any metrics or any standard. And yet that is what was going on. But yet from some of the same people that's, pushing back against, our change and, putting the call centers and putting those at the forefront are saying, oh, you can't do that, even if it meant, making better service. The sad part about this was it took an IG report to actually get this fixed. The Atlanta VA has now put the positions in place to have gotten this fixed. I've been on the job about 6 weeks now. We're making sure of that. I've already started meeting each week once and more with our hospital. So we're trying to get a better handle on making sure that these kind of issues aren't brought to us in an IG report. That's not acceptable to me, and it's not acceptable to the American people.
Yeah, I've seen video of you talking about this along with many, many, many other people in the military community, in the veterans community. There was a VA report recently released that indicated that about 17 veterans die by suicide every day.
Yes.
What are you doing? What is the VA doing to fix that?
Well, it's stayed about 6,500 for almost the last 15 years, but yet we're still spending money as if the number is lowering or we're actually getting return on results. Look, I've been in the Air Force for 23 years. I've been a chaplain for that whole time. I was in the Navy as well. I've actually dealt with people on the other end of the line or in person who say that they've come to the end of their rope. They don't want to continue on, and they're looking to have death by suicide. That's not an easy place. We're still looking at how we're spending $588 million. I want to see better results. And so we're actually saying we'll spend this money. We'll spend whatever it takes to save a life, but we're also got to do it in a way that actually shows a return on investment. Doing the same thing the same way and complaining about the result, I think we all know what the definition of that is. And we got to do that better. So I'm asking different questions. I'm going to different groups. I'm hopefully on with you today. And if there's a veteran out there who is in trouble or they just need somebody to talk to, dial 988, press that one button. Somebody's going to be there 24/7, 365 in our crisis line to talk to you. This is what we've got to do, is reach out beyond what we've always done and the always standard answers and start asking, why are we doing what we're doing?
I know you're still new, relatively speaking, on the job, about 6 weeks in the top chair at the VA, but do you have a sense of what that specific roadmap looks like for veteran mental health care as you move forward? Because you're talking about doing things differently, changing the status quo. Specifically, what does that look like?
Well, it looks like we're going to look at the possibility of new treatments. There's a lot of discussion on treatment options out there, some including experimental treatments. We're looking under right to try. Is there a way that we can? There's been a lot of studies on psychedelic issues, and we're seeing if that's a possibility at the VA. If it is, great. If it's not, if it's within the law, we'll go to Congress and see if that's a possibility. But I have many veterans who are coming to say, "Hey, let's look at this." We have a lot of other organizations that are doing some very good stuff in group therapy and also counseling that bring them a veteran in who may not come to the VA. One of the things that we didn't talk about here just a second ago is out of that 17 number at 6,500, almost 50% have never had any contact with the VA. So I want you to just take that in for a second. 50% of those who took their life death by suicide had no contact at all with the VA. So we've got to go outside our box. That's why I'm doing podcasts. That's why I'm on radio shows. That's why I'm doing your show. That's why I'm doing anything I can to make those people who may have had a bad experience or they don't want to be with the VA, they don't want to have experience, to know that, hey, I don't care where you get the help. We're going to put resources into getting people to you that will help you do that. I'm not willing to stand put and do basically the same thing the same way and still have people take their own life in that way. I just can't do it.
Let's shift gears here. I know another priority, and your Director of Communications, Morgan Ackley, she's put out some releases on this as well. One of your top priorities since you've been in office is winding back what you've referred to as DEI efforts within the VA. I think that's a term that everyone has heard about by now, but it is one of those terms that can have different meanings to different people. So I want to start here. To you, what does DEI mean, and what are the rollbacks that you've instituted?
Well, what it means at the Department of VA is that we're not going to look for exclusions. We're looking to have the best and brightest that we want to have come. And it doesn't matter where your background is, where you're from, you come and want to be a part of this team and be a part of this organization, you're going to be welcomed with open arms to be a part of what we have here. Look, in a situation with any organization, people want to work where good people are, and good people are not going to work where bad things are tolerated. So instead of spending $14 million on many things that seem to divide us, which is something we looked at, and following the president's executive order, we said, let's put that $14 million back to patient health care. And that's what we did. So for us, it's not a matter of excluding anyone. In fact, anybody that's earned a benefit, I don't care where you are at, if you're a veteran who's earned your benefit, your health care benefit, or your benefits package, disability, education, whatever it may be, you're welcome to use that. And we want to encourage you to do that. But we're not going to be setting aside differences in our community. We're going to be setting aside what brings us together and welcoming all.
I know that there are going to be people who hear you say that and they're going to be nodding their heads up and down and saying yes. I know also that there are going to be some people who hear you say that and they might see that effort as an attack on their race or their religion or their sexual orientation, and they might see it as a way of being ostracized from the VA. To somebody who might have that concern, what would you say?
I would say it's wrong. And look, I'll be sympathetic to the concern, but here's the deal. No matter where race, background they come from, if they have a veteran that has earned the benefit, they're going to get the benefit. And if they're being, felt like they're denied for any of those reasons, then they can call me and I'll walk into the facility with them to get those benefits. This is just something, again, putting aside, we go back to, we want folks to be the best that they possibly can be. The meritocracy of working here is that we want to help veterans. And so anything that divides us from that is something that should take us away and put us back on the path of saying, why are we here as an organization, and how are the people here designed to get the veteran the best care and benefits that they've earned?
I want to be respectful of your time. Perhaps the last question to you is more of a macro one. I know that President Trump, many in his administration, have a pretty bright view of private business and private enterprise and the efficiencies there. Over the years, there's been talk that private medicine can perform better and deliver better outcomes for people. And the question has been posed, why not let the private medical system take care of America's veterans and do away with or drastically shrink the scope of work of the Department of Veterans Affairs? When you hear those questions, when you hear those arguments, what do you think of that?
I think that they're, again, they go from a perspective that they may feel is helpful. But look, I'll tell you, anywhere out there, the VA is going to be here for the veterans that have earned that benefit. It's going nowhere. Our healthcare system is, there are certain areas in the healthcare system that we do it better than anybody, especially in dealing with prosthetics and dealing with some of the injuries that are there. We do that very well. and it's something that is a benefit. What we got to do is also is to be better efficient at what we do. But also we got to take advantage of the Mission Act, which actually allowed veterans to make a choice. They could come into our system and go to our facilities, or they could go to their own community doctors when they met those qualifications. I think you're going to see more of that. The previous administration turned their back on community care because they chose, it seems to appear, to build the fiefdom of VA and not the care for the veteran. We're changing that. And if you can get that care outside and that's where you want to go, then we're going to facilitate that and make it happen. But privatization is a word that people use to scare veterans and scare VA employees. And I don't tolerate that at the VA. If you're going to complain about the VA, or you're going to scare veterans into thinking something's going to go bad because some changes are being made at the VA, especially things that are basically been innuendo and rumors that are going on, I'm going to fight back forcefully, because number one, the veterans should never be scared that the VA is not going to be there to fulfill their promise, but also the VA employee deserves better as well. As we work to get better, I want to make sure that they hear the right things, and that's why we do interviews like this.
Secretary Doug Collins, I appreciate it, sir.
It's good to be with you. Take care.